Family is often described as a safe harbor, but a relative's sense of entitlement can quickly turn that shelter into a storm. Welcome to the Internet Jury. We're opening case file number 1, centered on the high-stakes environment of a hospital birthing suite. A couple preparing for the birth of their son set a clear limit. Because the wife required a C-section, they wanted no visitors on the day of the delivery. The husband informed his mother-in-law of the procedure, and she explicitly agreed to wait for his permission before coming to the hospital. The surgery was successful. The husband messaged the family group chat to confirm that both mother and baby were doing perfectly. Establishing a medical boundary like this is standard practice, creating a necessary layer of protection during a period of intense physical and emotional vulnerability. The mother-in-law's response was immediate. She texted back admitting she wasn't invited, but stating, "We are in the waiting room," because they were so excited. The husband remained firm, telling the in-laws he appreciated them coming up, but that they should go home and return the following day. This triggered a wave of retaliation. The father-in-law called to deliver a string of insults, and the mother-in-law sent a long text accusing the husband of being disrespectful for blocking access to their daughter. The husband stood his ground, stating that the day was about his wife, the baby, and their immediate recovery, rather than the in-laws' desires. In this dynamic, support is treated as a form of control. By enforcing a previously agreed-upon boundary, the husband is framed as a villain to justify the family's choice to ignore his wife's needs. We move from the hospital to the kitchen for Exhibit B, the onion deception. The stakes are lower, but the underlying sense of entitlement remains. A 17-year-old girl handles the cooking for her family, including her sister-in-law who lives next door and arrives for dinner almost every night. During one meal prep, the sister-in-law saw onions being diced and insisted they were too spicy to eat, forcing the teenager to throw out the entire dish to avoid being yelled at. This created a cycle where the teenager would cook without onions or garlic, only to have the sister-in-law complain that the resulting food had no flavor. To manage the conflict, the teenager began prepping the onions and garlic an hour early, hiding the ingredients so the sister-in-law wouldn't see them being added to the pot. This illustrates the trap of impossible standards. A person is forced to choose between breaking an irrational rule or facing criticism for the poor results that rule creates. At a later family dinner, the teenager's brother brought up the idea of onions being too spicy, leading his wife to double down on her claim that she hated them and they made her sick. The brother pointed out the contradiction. She was currently eating and enjoying a dinner that was full of the very onion she claimed she couldn't tolerate. Faced with the evidence, the sister-in-law immediately pivoted to a physical performance, faking a sudden reaction to the spice and frantically demanding milk. Even though the lie was exposed, the family's reaction was to yell at the 17-year-old, blaming her for the sister-in-law's public embarrassment. When an entitled individual is caught in a fabrication, they often shift the focus to the person who exposed them. The goal is to move the conversation away from the lie and back toward their own comfort. These stories end in a similar place. A husband is alienated from his in-laws, and a teenager is scapegoated for a kitchen dispute. We can map these behaviors on an action-reaction matrix, comparing the importance of the boundary against the severity of the family's response. In both the high-stakes hospital scenario and the low-stakes onion incident, the severity of the tantrum stays at the same maximum level. The scale of the outburst suggests the reaction isn't about the specific rule being broken. Instead, the intensity remains high because the family's primary goal is to re-establish their authority over the situation. So, what is your verdict? Was the husband right to prioritize his wife's recovery? And was the teenager justified in her culinary workaround? A boundary creates a clear test. When a relationship depends on total compliance, a simple no can bring the whole structure down.